Okay, good morning, folks. Good morning, parents. Hope you're well. Hope you enjoyed the assembly. I know we haven't spoken for a few weeks, but lots have happened over the last 48 hours or so. Schools have now been given, I've been part of the circulation list for all the support for September, and I'll come on to a few things that I've gleaned from that in terms of what things will look like in September. Just to kind of confirm, obviously I sent out the class structure letter with some other information a few weeks ago onto Dojo. It might have even been last week, I can't remember. Just about some of the things that are happening over the next couple of weeks, and obviously things that are concerning summer and summer provision. Just a reminder that the reports will be coming out, will be available to collect on the 10th of July, so that's next Friday, between 9 and 11. Weather permitting, we'll have a couple of tables outside the school gate where you can come and collect, a bit like a kind of ring road, really, horseshoe effect, where you can collect from a certain table. If it's raining, then we'll probably get you into the hall in one of the school halls, and I'll obviously inform you about which hall that will be and how that will look. If you don't obviously collect your reports, they'll be available for you and for the children in September. If obviously year 6, what we'll do is those children are key worker families that are in school that week, we'll try and make sure we put their annual reports into their bag. Obviously, if the children aren't attending school, then obviously Friday the 10th will be the time to come and collect those. During that morning as well, I believe, particularly for year 2 parents, Mrs. Blackburn and Mrs. Angel will be selling uniform. I understand, I think from one of my Dojo posts that if you're an infant, if you have an infant account on Brigade, that you could access those sizes, which you can, but I think they're all out of stock. So, but obviously the junior school do stock and keep a uniform for those children. So that can be done next Friday as well, and that'll be available for you to come and purchase, particularly house t-shirts. And just to kind of confirm, if you've had siblings go through, if the children have had siblings go through the school, they'll be in the same house. So you might not need a PE t-shirt, you might want a nice new one. So that'll be happening during the morning at the same time for a couple of hours. If not, then you can wait till September for uniform, that's absolutely fine. While we're on September, just because I've mentioned uniform, obviously that first week back, just a quick reminder that the inset days have been moved. So originally they were planned for the 1st and the 2nd of September. But because we haven't been able to do any kind of transition because of staff shielding, and I don't particularly think that's safe with these strict measures in place, that we'll be doing a transition for the children, all children and new children to the schools, apart from our new reception families. We'll be doing that on the 1st and the 2nd of September. So the children are due in on the first Tuesday and Wednesday back. On the Tuesday, they spend time with their current or previous teacher, whichever way you want to look at it. And then on the Wednesday, as we would normally do in the summer term, is they would spend part of the morning with their new teacher. So we're not changing anything, it's just obviously a bit later on. And to be honest, I feel a bit more happy about that rather than children coming in before summer, seeing new teachers, etc., and then forgetting about them again until September. So I think it'd be nice that they spend some time with their previous teacher, then their new teacher, and then they have the 2 inset days off, which is the Thursday and the Friday, and then all back in again on the Monday, the 7th of September, ready to go. So that's the plan for September. How it looks as it stands, and I will, after this, I will dojo the link to the government publication, which talks about what schools need to consider, parents would need to consider, because obviously the big thing for you folk is that you have to send your children back to school in September, otherwise there are substantial fines. So that's just the kind of key thing that came out for parents and their point of view, from your point of view, sorry. So I think it's between 60 and 120 pounds. I think there's a bit like the attendance issue. I think they've done something quite similar. So all children need to be in school from September. We'll be adhering to pretty much most of the things that we're doing in terms of washing hands, cleaning things, staying in the 30-person class bubbles. What I'll do is I will communicate letter with some kind of highlighted points regarding staggered starting times, maybe, just so we can get certain groups of children, large groups of children, into school safely, into their designated bubble areas. But please don't worry about that now. They'll all be with their new classes. And that being said, on that on the 1st of September, the year twos, so the current year twos, will need to go back to their current classes, not to the junior school. Just to kind of throw that in. So yeah, so we'll try and make sure and limiting contact with other groups. We'll be doing things during the school day, so no assemblies. But we'll do it through this channel with the children. So if I'm holding assembly, I'll do it through this channel. So they don't miss out on whole school assemblies. It's just that we have to resort to more isolated assemblies. So yeah, so again, the prevention is very important. So minimizing contact. We'll still do the catch it, bin it, and kill it kind of thing. Clean hands. And as staff, we will be allowed to mix between the bubble groups, which helps because obviously in terms of communication and in terms of what we'll need to communicate about children and other things that we would do normally on a school day-to-day basis. But there may be some changes, like I said, at lunch times and break times, just to make sure that those bubble groups are separated and they're safe. Let's hope that's all going to work out reasonably well. I'm sure it will. Our risk assessments with everything that we're doing are all in line with the Safety Health Executive. And that's all been passed by the local authority. So we know that we've got a rigorous risk assessment in place. And in terms of the curriculum, and this isn't necessarily been fine-tuned yet, but what we're looking to do, obviously we've got some fantastic teachers here, we've got some great ideas, but I do feel a massive emphasis will need to be on mental health. I really feel that children have been asked to work in a very different environment at home. Previously in school, then at home, and then back to school again. Now, obviously, some of our key worker children, those who are eligible to come back to school during this lockdown period, may have an advantage there. But even the 6 weeks holiday might present some issues for those children returning back in September. So a lot of emphasis will be put on the arts, and we're doing a lot to PE, and we'll certainly be refreshing the children's memories about our GEMS. We'll be looking at the key concepts of English and maths that would have been taught in the summer term, or this current term, before we start moving on to new skills and new work. And that's going to take the first half term at least, so up till October half term. And I'd just like to kind of remind you at this point that we won't be doing any topic planning. There'll be some loose references to some of the things that the children will be doing. But I think we're focusing on the reading, the writing, and the maths, those key concepts that have been missed in the summer term, making sure that the children informally are accessing those key concepts through quizzes and games. We still keep the times table rock stars going and all those other kind of key skills, but a massive focus on behaviour, expectation, and mental health. So children feel safe, that the nets that they were so used to and that they depended on is still there for them. And for me, that's really important before we start throwing more things at them. How the rest of the year will pan out will depend on some of the guidance we get from the Department for Education and central government in terms of assessments. You may have noticed, and please do, that there's been links around social media about cancelling SATs for Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2, and whether or not actually this year is really important that even though it's only a third of the year, it's a long time where children have missed out on progress and access to teaching materials, expert teaching, and key concepts. So if you do see that link out there, and I might even put it on Dojo for you, I'll make a note of that. Please click on it, because I think we all feel as a school, as teachers, and particularly for the children, this year is very, very important. And when they return, we don't want to be testing children. Particularly those are going into year 6 and those going into year 2. So I'll put that on there for you, along with the link about September as well. What else can I say on the whole? Obviously, lunchtime is maybe slightly different. The kitchens will be open, but there's a possibility, because the children in their bubble groups, that we may be asking the canteen to make sandwiches for the time being, so we can have children in their classes eating their lunch within their classes. Obviously, if the children bring packed lunches anyway, that's fine. But those that normally have a hot school meal, I think potentially we might be looking at just doing packed lunches for the first half term, depending on what those social distancing measures are going to look like, and whether or not we can break the bubbles and children can mix in bubbles. So as soon as that happens, then obviously we'll go back to some hot school meals, and otherwise we'll probably spend the whole day doing lunchtime staggered sittings, which is obviously not any good use of anyone's time. Okay. So the standpoint in terms of any potential COVID-19 infections is this, and that's still a little bit vague. I think if a child contracts or becomes symptomatic, they obviously have to be collected immediately, and that particular bubble they were in will then need to isolate. Now that's if one person contracts. Now there's conjecture about whether or not if a second child or person contracts within the school, the whole school is closed. We don't know. That might just depend on certain circumstances. So for instance, if someone in the preschool contracts, a parent or a child, would we then need to close the infant or the junior school? I don't know. My thought is for everyone to be safe, that would be the sensible thing to do. But again, we're still waiting on guidance for that. So we'll have to see. But yeah, so if one child does contract or a member of staff, then that particular bubble that they work in will have to isolate. Okay. By all means, use the chat method, folks, if you want to ask any questions. It doesn't matter unless we've got some new reception parents listening, which I'll be doing a video for them next Wednesday. But early years assessment has been cancelled, so we know about that. No Ofsted inspections potentially in the autumn term. Where else are we? I think that's it, other than the fact that you may have noticed that Gloucestershire is on one of those boroughs that are likely to be potentially looking at a local lockdown, which will be a bit of a pain, and let's hope it doesn't come to that. So in terms of that, we've obviously highlighted summer provision. Obviously, as a school, we're going to be closed, and I hope you can empathise with the fact that my teachers and my staff and me, we all need a bit of a kind of break. And I think on the whole, most people are organising their own childcare, and there's obviously some signposted camps for children to use. But I'm also aware as of tomorrow that grandparents, friends and other households can be used as childcare as well. And I did say if you're really, really struggling, you need to contact me directly, individually. And not saying we can guarantee anything, but I can certainly signpost you to other places. I think we just want to make sure that everyone is fit and healthy for September and ready to go. Because it's been a very remarkable and unique situation. And I think everyone, including yourselves, deserve a bit of a shut off before we start again in September, which will be an interesting place as well. Okay, do I have any questions for anyone? A message for year sixes. You may have seen on your dojo story that the final week of term, so not next week, the week after, year six will be Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday and Thursday, because the Friday is going to be the Leavers Assembly, which we felt that year sixes might want to be at home with their parents to watch that. So that'll be through this medium, through the YouTube channel here. And it's an opportunity for you to spend some time as a family to see how well the children have done. What we'll do is that week, we're hoping that all the hoodies that you've bought will be in that week, so we can give the children, the year sixes, that. And obviously, if you're not sending your children into it's not a problem, but we've got other bits and pieces for the children to have as well. I think someone asked something about a disco. We can't do a disco, mainly for the obvious reasons. And even at a later date, it'll be difficult about how we can fit that in. So I do apologise to the year six families about there's lots of things that the year sixes haven't had. And just want to reassure you that we're doing all we can to make it as special for them as possible. But obviously there's certain things that we can't do. and to delay it and have it a bit later on in the autumn term isn't necessarily appropriate. And I don't think we'll be able to manage that anyway in terms of our own calendars. And I think we just had someone come on a previous year 6 last year. Mr. Finn Mills has said hello. Well, I'm doing fine, Finn. How are you? I'm sure you finding this frustrating not to be able to do all your acting and things, but it's lovely to hear from you, young man. It's good to hear from you. Unfortunately, Mrs. Hancock won't be in, I'm afraid, for obvious reasons. She's in that high-risk category, being pregnant, and so she's not in. But if you do bring in something forward, we'll absolutely get any gifts sent to her. In fact, I think she does. She does pop in. She pops in with no children around, but I don't see her. But she is supposed to be keeping herself safe and away from school. But if you do have something from Mrs. Hancock, then of course we'll pass it on. Thank you, Mrs. Moore. I think that's everything. Yes, okay. Right, 27 you dropped by. I know we normally have playback on this. I think just if you do playback, then hello for those of you who are watching a bit later. I probably will be using this a little bit more during the year, certainly in September, just in case I can't speak to you directly anyway, depending on what the measures look like. So I do want to use this platform a bit more, and I've been encouraged to. So I find it very useful to get a video out there. So thank you for those that have been dropping in, and hopefully if there is any more information, I'll certainly do another one of these forums before the end of term. And just a reminder, the end of term is the 17th of July, so that's 2 weeks today. And here we go. Yeah, so in terms of assessing children, see where they are academically, as I said, what we'll do is we need to focus on the key concepts. So when they come in, we'll be doing the kind of informal, when we say testing, it's not necessarily testing, but we always do baseline assessments, informal assessments with the children to see where they are. And we use our own kind of resources for that. And it can happen quite quickly. And we'll do it with the children through a lot of fun games, as opposed to sitting at desks and going through papers and papers of tests. That doesn't really tell us anything, really. But we'll be spending a lot of that first half of the autumn term focusing a lot one-to-one work with the children to see where they really are. Obviously, we're currently, the staff are using Zoom to pass on information about your children to the next class. That's happening as we speak. And everything that's come from the spring term data, all those assessments have been passed on. So we kind of know where they are roughly, but obviously with the break in the teaching, it will tell us a lot more in September when we do those informal assessments. If there are any updates, Mr. Donny, over summer, of course, I'll let you know. That might be via here, or I might just dojo things. And yes, so because September is supposed to be back to normal, PMUs will be open. I believe a lot of you obviously wanting to get back to work. So PMUs will be open. I'll give more guidance on that because we're still awaiting what that kind of provision will look like, because I'm very aware that's a bubble in itself and then they break into other bubbles. So but the fact that they said that there should be no social distancing in terms of how far away children are from one another, it shouldn't really matter so much. The case, I'm not quite sure why we're doing bubbles anyway, but it doesn't make any sense. But we'll do it. It's all bonkers, really, isn't it, folks? Let's be frank. But main thing is, I hope you're all well. I hope you're keeping safe. I really hope you weren't on that Bournemouth beach the other weekend, because I'll be very disappointed. But yes, hopefully you've been able to spend some time with some of your friends and your family, and you've been accepting other people into your bubbles. I know for me personally, I had my mum down last week and I hadn't seen her for a long time. So I'm sure we're all quite emotional when we saw extended family and things. So I hope you've had the opportunity to see some of your loved ones. and it obviously makes us all feel a bit better in that case. And to be honest, we've been reasonably lucky with the weather, haven't we? And hopefully our real summer is going to come along soon. And maybe some of you have had some good news that we won't have to quarantine when we come back from Spain, Italy, other places, I think, which will be confirmed today. And some, well, I don't particularly feel happy about going abroad this year. I was hoping to, but that's all been moved. But opportunities maybe to go elsewhere in England might be quite nice. So I hope you have something planned at least, and I hope the government allow us to do something just to get a bit of R&R and a bit of a break from everything, because all of you have been fabulous. I've been overwhelmed really by the support from you all, particularly with the portfolio uploads and the amount of work you're doing with the children. And just on that note, just a reminder, the last week of term, I haven't asked staff to do an outline because I want them to focus on a bit of transition with the other teachers. So please do refer to the Oak Primary and BBC Bite Size, but I haven't asked staff for next Friday to send anything out in terms of planning. Okay, I want to kind of give them a bit of a break as well. Thank you, Mr. Taylor, for your kind words. And I know everyone's been working incredibly hard, you all have, and I think we all deserve a bit of a break, even though we've kind of been on a break, but it hasn't really. It's very strange. So yeah, thank you so much. Right, I'll give you a few more seconds, just if there's any other questions. Oh, there's some nice comments there. That's great. Okay. Right. Thank you all. Have a nice weekend, and I will send you that link for that document. You may have seen it. You might just be, if you go into gov.uk, you can access the publications for actions for schools during the coronavirus outbreak. That's absolutely fine in terms of full school openings in September. I'll also add that petition for the Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 assessments on there for you. And yes, thank you, Ms. Keller. Yes, in September, I'll add this to a note during the summer about all the books and all the work you've been filling up, which is great. Please bring those in, because we'll keep those, and we'll have a little look through those, because we said we would, and we will. And I know a lot of things have been put on online, but yes, please bring those in September. That'd be great. Really important. But yeah, so, well, have a lovely weekend, and I will add those things to Dojo for you. And, well, take care. Okay? Bye-bye now.